Welcome back everyone as we continue to scrutinise the podcast created by Ian Doyle in association with the Irish Sun and with the help of Sun editor Stephen Breen. Now we're moving on to the most vital part of the podcast thus far, and we're going to look at the very point, the moment in time when the investigation changed completely. At the end of the last video, we discussed and discovered that in 2016, 2017, the investigation had nothing. 3.5, 4 years after the Modern robbery, we've been told clearly, no, we have nothing. There was no breakthroughs. We're lacking in progress. So we're actually going to start this video off in the same vein and move on then to when we become aware of this man here, Christopher, who is a liar and set off a chain of events that led to the most serious miscarriage of justice, collusion, corruption in any criminal case in Irish history. So we look at the first, we listen to the first clip here now.
So far, the evidence was lacking. Brady's weak alibi proved he was hiding something, but it didn't prove he was the one who shot Adrian Donoghue. The Gardaí needed more.
Inquiries needed to be made over there, and as it turned out, and this is the interesting thing about this, is that there was a newspaper article in the local Argus by a Sinn Féin councillor about the armed robbery, and that anyone with information should come forward and tell the Gardaí. And this particular councillor put it up on his Facebook account, and a friend of his who was living in America contacted him and said, I know Aaron Brady's over here and he told me he shot the guard, and would you get the guards to contact me? And I took up that inquiry, and I spoke with the councillor, and he told me, yeah, this is the man in America who's telling me this.
Again, in that clip, we have been told that evidence is lacking. There is no evidence linking Aaron Brady to the Modern robbery, and there's definitely no evidence to suggest that Aaron Brady murdered Detective Garda Adrian Donoghue. So they needed to do something. They needed to find something. And this is where the case changed. And Mr. Marry tells us there that a man from America, Christopher, who we say is a complete liar, contacted, as Pat Marry says, his friend, a Sinn Féin councillor who is Anton Waters out on the Cooley Peninsula. And we discuss the friendship between Christopher and Anton Waters as the podcast progresses. So that's the changing point. And the baseline here is, the very bottom line here is, Christopher is a liar. And we're going to move on now and we listen to how this interaction between Marry and Christopher developed and how Marry portrays this Christopher person here as some sort of a hero.
Over a phone call, Pat made contact with the man in America. He told Pat he'd met Aaron Brady in a local bar. Brady didn't spend much time at the pub when he first got to the city, but as time elapsed, he felt much more comfortable socialising with other expats around him. Pat felt this could be his first big break in the case. As he made contact, the man repeated what he'd said to the Sinn Féin councillor, that Aaron Brady had confessed to the shooting. Pat was stunned, although it wasn't the first time in his career he'd come across a casual admission of guilt under the influence of alcohol.
And I said, would you make a statement? And he wouldn't make a statement. He said he didn't want to make a statement. I said, that's fine. I understand if you don't want to, and I can understand you may be under fear.
The witness told Pat he didn't fear anyone. If anything, he seemed insulted by the accusation. Having come so close to securing such a vital bit of information, Pat wasn't ready to give up just yet.
And I was trying to get across to him that what he was telling me was very important and vital in the progress in the investigation, and I would like him to come forward and make that statement. And I'm not going to lie to you, I said, you'll need to go to court, you'll need to stand up and say what you say in your statement. And he says, I'll talk to you, he says, next couple of days. And I says, fair enough.
Pat wasn't too sure if the man would cooperate. Days went by and he heard nothing. His spirits were beginning to drop.
I would try to ring him, his phone was off. I said, that's that now, this, you know.
That was until he got a phone call from an unknown American number. The man was keen to talk and apologised for leaving Pat waiting.
I got a phone call then from him on a different number, and he says, I'm sorry. I said, grand, not a bother. But he says, I did make up my mind, I will make a statement. And I said, are you sure? He said, yes. There's one difficulty, but he says, I ran it through two very good friends of mine, people I would trust, and one of them told me, make your statement and stand up and be counted. And the other one told me, don't have anything got to do with the guards, keep your mouth shut, you know nothing. And that was, he says, but I think I've thought it out myself, and I think about Adrian Donahou's wife, and in particular his two children, and that's why I want to make a statement.
Little clip there from the podcast is only just a brief oversight of the initial contact between Pat Marry and Christopher, and it just gives some details of how they met initially. And just a couple of points to point out there. Christopher said that he was insulted, that he wasn't afraid of anyone, and he was going to stand up and be counted, and he was coming forward for very commendable reasons. So those little points will become quite important later on as Christopher's story progresses to the point of where he makes a statement and doesn't come to court. So now we're going to move on to the more serious part, and we'll have a look at what Christopher told Pat Marry.
So he said, if you come over on the 15th of that month, whatever it was, 15th of September, October, whatever it was, he says, I'll meet you in New York.
They arranged to meet on 10th and 24th Street in Chelsea Village, a busy, upmarket part of Manhattan.
And he says, I'll meet you at the corner there at such a time. And I said, fair enough. And I was delighted with that. I said, I thought I had... Now, I had this person, I knew who he was, and I had him well vetted and checked out. You always have a fear that you're being set up, that they have a plant in there to tell you lies or to put you off the investigation or to, you know. But I had this person well checked out, and I was quite happy with his bona fides and that he was who he was. And he told me the truth, and he was legitimate in New York, and he wasn't a person looking for anything from the guards or looking for anything from Homeland Security or anything of that nature, that there'd be no compromise in any way.
Okay, so we have Pat Marry there telling us he's checked Christopher out and that he was well vetted, well checked out, and his bona fides came up all clear. And he was legitimate in New York, and he wasn't looking for anything from Homeland Security. All those things are incorrect. And I am certain Pat Marry knows that all those things are incorrect. Christopher initially was illegal in New York because he didn't fill out in his ESTA visa that when he moved to New York from Mike here in County Armagh, that he was part of a Restorative Justice Committee. And this is a committee here set up in Northern Ireland, and it brings perpetrators of crime together with those who suffered the crime that was committed against them. And needless to say, Christopher did not suffer any crime. Christopher was a perpetrator. He was involved in criminal activities here in South Armagh and in the Greater Newry area. So if Pat Marry vetted this man, they knew all about him, and some of his details were given in court during the course of Aaron's trial. And again, like a vast amount of information was withheld and never given directly or correctly to Aaron's defence. So from the very outset, Pat Marry would appear to be either his checking and vetting is very, very poor, or Pat Marry, like Christopher, is telling a tissue of lies. So let's see Christopher's lies now and how Pat Marry bought into those.
Pat asked him to relay what had happened on the night he spoke to Brady.
He was disgusted. It was after a wedding and everyone was back in this pub in Yonkers, and I don't know, 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, wherever they go drinking in America, and someone says, "That's Aaron Brady over there, the fella there."
Brady cut a lonely figure, sitting alone at the bar. The man approached him out of curiosity, if nothing else.
We've just listened to a 30-second clip, which I believe, and we believe, is a perfect example of how corrupt, how coercive, and how flawed this investigation is. And this podcast is peddling nothing but a tissue of lies. This is the centre of it. This is the beginning of the whole collusion, corruption and coercion. Christopher gave his evidence on the 15th of May 2017. Aaron Brady was arrested in New York on the 18th of May 2017. Now, I don't know whether Pat Marry's stupid or he doesn't know his dates, but he tries to slip in September there. But Christopher gave his, unless the dates and the statements are wrong, unless they're falsifying those. But Christopher gave his tissue of lies statement on the 15th of May 2017. Aaron was arrested and held by Homeland Security 3 days later. Now, he says he went into a bar at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning after being at a wedding. I'm going to give a very brief description of what happened here. Christopher was at a wedding on the Friday. It's actually a local, people from Cross Midland who got married in New York. He was in the wedding all day Friday. Went out to play golf Saturday, was drinking in Moriarty's pub on McLean Avenue from 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Again, according to different parts of the statement and different parts of what Pat Marry and Mark Phillips have to say, we don't know whether he came into the Tombstone bar where this incident allegedly happened at 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. We don't know that, and Christopher, the liar, tells us that he wasn't drunk. He made that very clear to Marry and Ogle when they were taking a statement. So he's been drinking for over 12 hours and he's not drunk. So he's a good one. But the most vital part of, so he says he goes up to the bar, there's a fella sitting at the bar. "How are you doing? My name's Brady." "Oh, Brady, are you the fella that shot the guard?" "I am. What the fuck is it to you?" So that's Christopher's story. But there's a whole myriad of lies and inaccuracies in the whole statements. So the base of why we call Christopher a liar is very simple. Aaron was not in the Tombstone bar that night following the wedding. But Aaron's sister was in the bar. Laurene was in the bar with some of the wedding party. Aaron Brady was not in the Tombstone bar. So Christopher, you're a fucking liar. Can I put it any simpler than that? And at some stage you're going to have to come and face the music in relation to this. And we have no issue, and I personally have no issue, if someone has information in relation to something as serious as the murder of anyone, but the murder of a member of an Garda Síochána. And that information is bona fide and it is correct. That information, I believe, should be passed over to the authorities. I don't think there's any issue with that. But this bastard here is telling a tissue of lies to save himself. So that's the basis. So you have to see why we're so upset about what Christopher done. He set up the whole beginning of what became collusion, corruption and coercion. And he has tentacles involved with other people who came forward, and we'll see that as we move on. And then we have these journalists coming in. Brady caught a lonely figure sitting alone at the bar. Right, let's have a look at the man who supposedly seen Brady. So Christopher, in his statement, says that Brady was sitting at the bar with his girlfriend. And in another statement he gives to, I think it's Phillips and Clancy in September 2017, he said Brady was with another fella, a girl, and the girl who he assumed was his girlfriend. So this bullshit of Brady sat alone at the bar he cut a lonely figure. I see again, this isn't a drama for ITV, BBC or RTE. This is people's lives. So Ian Doyle, that's bullshit, it's lies, it's wrong, it's incorrect, it's all of those things. And our son is in jail for something he didn't do because people like you are peddling bullshit to cover a whole lot of lies. I hope people understand that. And this gets even worse. And he said, I approached him out of curiosity. Pat Marry tells someone's telling lies. Pat Marry says that Christopher told him, someone pointed out Brady to me. Now, in both the statements, Christopher goes up to the bar as they come in from Moriarty's. They all cram into taxis and Moriarty's at either 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. He doesn't know. And he comes into the bar. Some of them stayed outside smoking, so nobody told him there was anyone at the bar. And Christopher walked up to the bar. And Christopher was disgusted. We're going to have another look at the interaction now. But this is the basis of it. What Christopher is saying is a total fabrication. It is lies. Because Aaron's sister was in the Tombstone that night. And when Laurene went back home to 28 First Street, Aaron was in bed. So that's the basis that changed. That's why Aaron Brady was arrested 3 days later. That initiated this whole saga. That Christopher sitting in the Homeland Security office in New York. So we're going to go and delve down a little bit more into Christopher's alleged interaction with Aaron.
Nothing else. The rumours of a cop killer had been circulating around Woodlawn Heights, and he wanted to see for himself if they were true.
And he says, I went over to him. He says, how is she going? He says, you're from Ireland. And he said, yeah, I'm Brady. Oh, right, I think I heard of you. Yeah, I'm the fella they're writing about. I shot the guard, yeah, you know. And he said it in such a way that, no doubt he meant what he said, like, you know. And he said, I was disgusted. He says, I bought him a short, gave it to him, and skedaddled, he said, you know. But I was very annoyed. He says, very, very annoyed. But he said, I will make this statement.
There we have it, folks. There's Pat Marry telling us that a man gave him this story after 48 hours of drinking in a dark bar. And there's much more detail to the events that allegedly happened at that time. So, again, we've this story been painted that Christopher was disgusted. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. And what does he do? He's that disgusted, he buys this man a shot of whiskey. Right, very good. So you're disgusted with someone, they're after telling you something that disgusts you, and the natural instinct is to buy him a shot of whiskey. That's all we're going to cover in this video, because we have to go into much more detail. I want everyone to absorb it. I want to leave it as short as possible so people understand how much of a liar this fella is, and how this man here and his connection will show with other people who came forward, other criminals, very serious criminals, and how his story is full of inaccuracies and lies. So, and his interactions with the Sinn Féin councillor, Mr. Anton Waters. And then again, we look at how Anton Waters has reacted to our appeals to discuss this situation with him. So we'll be back again tomorrow evening with the rest of the story, the lies from Christopher the Layer and Pat Marry, the senior investigating officer. So thanks again for watching, and we'll follow on with this tomorrow evening. Thank you.